Are are we live? Yes, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my Saturday stream. Today, as you can see, we're going right back in to talking about some Dungeons and Dragons. And as was voted on by y'all at the end of our last Dungeons and Dragons stream, today we are going to be going into a full story time stream. That's right. The entire stream is going to be us trying to get as caught up as possible with the story of my current party in my current campaign. What has happened leading up to this point? What did they get done in the next arc of the story? And how far are we from fully catching up to where my current sessions are at? We'll see how far we can get in the story time today, but before all that, how is everybody doing? Spring, I see you're out there knowing exactly what's coming. I'm glad to see Marcial and Terramon are back. Flagul, you still out there? And Grey Raid. Talking about the COVID shot. How's everybody doing this weekend? Hey, Survival X8, or just Survival if you prefer. How are you? Yes, you are new. What brings you on out to the stream? You excited to hear some Dungeons and Dragons story time, or you here for some of my other content I've done in the past? Also, anybody got any weekend plans coming up? Either this weekend or next one. I believe a lot of people are getting an extra long weekend coming up here soon, so how are you all doing? Yep, I'm here as promised yesterday. Yeah, you are. Glad to see y'all coming back and enjoying things. Totally exhausted. Just finished the LSAT. Oh shit, Viventium. Well done. How you feel like you did? Fucking, you get through all of it? You feeling hyped, excited? Does that one have essays on it, or is it mostly just questions? Oh yeah, I got to thank you. Your voice soothed me to sleep yesterday. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Grey Raid. I always hope to be providing a very smooth experience for my listeners. Take me away. I do not want to think about argument evaluation anymore. Well. With a request from Viventium, then, I suppose we can start heading away. Let's see. Oh, that is nice. But let's get the fire just a hair bigger there. There we are. So, let's see if everything here is working as expected. It all looks good. So, we're going to be starting off today with a little bit of a recap. I know I have quite a few first timers here, so there's just a little bit of the story to catch up on. Though today is a very interesting transition point, because today in the story we're going to be losing some party members, gaining some new ones, and everything's going to be moving right along. For those who are interested on totally catching up in detail, though, feel free to check out my archive on YouTube, and you can get the hyperlink right here, where I store up currently all of my D&D streams. They're the only ones I currently store in my archive, so no, you won't be able to find any of my Monster Hunter streams there. But I'm simply trying to kind of keep my more sequential streams up and ordered, which for now is just the Dungeons and Dragons. There you can find a lot of my homebrew content, looking into some of the rules I make, some of the races and classes I've built, and also a lot of the lore on how I went about making my current homebrew world, where the party is currently playing in. Now, without any further ado, welcome to the world of Deorum, and the current party that ventures through it Yes, arrived just in time. That you did, Vulcan. Though we are doing a recap, so hopefully everyone else who's hoping to catch on will be able to get here quickly enough. The party met only a couple of weeks ago, gathered in the city-state of Scarin, where, through many mistakes and glorious vengeance-seeking, a part of the city was burnt down in their quest to save a child and to end a slavery ring operating within the poorer reaches of the city. With that, the party had to make their quick escape, and through that escape they learned that a few of their members have a connection to the nation of Polemont, and one particular member, the general of the 5th Legionaries, one Felix Augustus. Rasmussen, the dwarven fighter, thus would lead the party to one of Felix's war camps after their quick departure from Scarin. There they would pick up a new job, delivering some dignitaries for the nation of Polemont, all the way to the Elven Kingdom of Aofen. Good evening to you, Blinty boy, and yeah, pulled off a 4-hour stream yesterday. Today, though, we're getting onto our usual 2-hour schedules. Oh, and we do have to pause chat and the video for just a second, because as always, I want to take some time for thanking my glorious AI viewers out there. How are you doing, bots? Why, yes, I think some of my viewers might want to become famous, though. I'm quite happy at my current size, so I don't think I'll be making use of your service myself. So chat, everybody, please say hello to our future AI overlords and let them know what you think of their programmed responses and advertising, please. Oh, I do love when they show up. It lets me know I'm grabbing someone's attention. Well then, the party thus took the job, delivering dignitaries, visiting an elven kingdom. It all sounded so glorious and fantastical. So the party headed south to the capital of Polemont, Arena. There they would engage in some interesting bathhouse scenes and be introduced to the two dignitaries. One, Aquila Andrana, a very clever woman with a panache for seduction and manipulation. They would also meet the second dignitary, one Laius Ramus, a very bookish man, serious in all manners and rather less sociable than Aquila. They would gather in the Andrana villa within the city, and over dinner would learn a bit about the two people they were taking and where they would be going. However, dinner would be cut short at the entrance of a group of brigand debt collectors. It seems the Andrana family overall, and Aquila in particular, had worked up quite a hefty debt over the past few years, and someone had finally hired a group to collect. The party not being the kind to start off a job shyly and with a lot of conversation, broke into combat rather quickly and ended up slaying most of the debt collectors, sending a few running and witnessing Aquila executing the leader of the group. Oh, why hello, first timer, Insane Sashiro. Good night, everybody. Are you heading off or simply wishing everybody a good evening as you're entering in? After the party successfully cleaned up a bit of the mess, reported what had happened to the guards, and gathered their dignitaries, they would head off on their journey. Nah, just joined, but it's 2 a.m. where I live. Ah, gotcha, insane. Well, welcome. Are you a first-time viewer, or simply your first time chatting? I love this new thing that Twitch has added where it lets you know when you have a first-timer. It makes me so curious. On their journey, the party would first stop in the crossroads city. There they would spend an evening with Rasmussen and Tortuga, meeting and learning a bit about Ramus. While Milo would spend an evening at the theater with Aquila and Drana, engaging in a bit of ethical and moral debates and discussions, where both of them would make attempts to play at the other's weaknesses and draw attention to each other's characters. Usually a VOD viewer, because time zones, but Insomnia hit hard today, so I'm enjoying it live for once. Hell yeah, Insane Sashiro. Well, I'm sorry to hear you're up and about, though it's hard for me to be upset with someone coming in live. I hope you do enjoy the VODs, and as a VOD viewer, do let me know if there's anything I can ever do to make the VOD viewing experience better or smoother at all. As you could tell, I mostly am catering to the live audience, so I'm curious if there's anything I could do to make your side of things any better. Yeah, I do seem to attract a lot of Europeans. Oh, wow. It is curious. After that evening, the party would then cut eastward, heading now directly in the direction of Aethan. They were cutting through the mountain paths as the ranger Malachite had quite a bit of experience through the mountains of Polamont. They would make good time until they were ambushed by shifters. They would quickly make short work of the ambush and learn a bit about the tribes that seemed to be now living here, their own issues and dangers in the mountains. From there, the party would cross into their final stop in Polamont, the outskirts town along the border with Aethan. Here they would see that one of the cohorts of the 5th Legion is stationed, make reports of the shifters in the mountain, and travel into the Authorial Valley, the land of the Wood Elves. Their journey into the woods would be an uncomfortable one. The darkness and foreboding energy that massive valley forest oozed made all those not from the land feel uncomfortable, like something was always watching them. Though to be fair, as the rumors of the Authorial Valley go, most likely something always is. 2 days into their journey of crossing through the Authorial, they would be stopped by a band of Authorial elves seeking the travel tax and perhaps a bit of sport at the traveler's expense. They would speak to Tortuga and make attempts to stretch his anger to the breaking point, seemingly looking for an excuse for things to become violent. But Tortuga, whether through accident or intentional cleverness, was able to diffuse the argument while getting in a few insulting shots at one Leaf Fayanil before he left. That night they would make it out of the Authorial Valley and rest outside a small village in the kingdom of Aethan, right along their border. From here, the party would venture further. Their final day of travel would take them to the outskirts of the capital of Aethan, Corella. And with that, our recap is over, but we will be moving in to today's true story. One, as you can see, that I call Strange New Friends and Strange Old Places. Their wagon in tow, the party cross to the cusp of a hill, and I look down the roadway to see the capital, Corella, in the distance. A strange city for most the first time they see it, built so differently, with so much magic behind it, so much history. The walls of the city appear to be made of a great white stone, At least the portions of it that you can see. For most of the wall holds the energy of life about it, overgrown with thick vines, climbing, long-rooted trees, and other shrubbery. The entire wall seems to be made of the forest, having ripped its way out of the valley and now existing to protect this city. That is not to say that the forest grows around the city. It is placed in a more clear area of the valley, but the wall itself seems to be working to always keep the presence of the forest here. Keep the life of nature, protecting its residents. The party approaches, begins to make their way through the gate and into the city proper. Within the city, the next thing they notice is the strange architecture that the elves have adopted all throughout. Everywhere, houses seem to be made in a very narrow, double-stacked system. The bottom floor seems to operate as a storefront for almost all the buildings they see. Odds and ends, clothing, baubles. Every family here seems to live in a house crammed against another house, built upwards, where the top floor is where the families sleep, and the bottom floor is where their business is run from, whether it's a storefront or simply a workspace. The entire city seems to be built around this idea and structure. One could wonder at how productive every member of the city is here, where every house seems to encourage a profession and a living space. After their first beginning ventures into the city, Aquila takes lead, explaining she knows exactly where the palace is, and she'll guide the party there. Hopefully their rooms are ready and everything could get squared away quite quickly. The party follows her lead, though taking a momentary note of the quiet, ponderous look on the face of their halfling bard, Milo. He's lost in thought and amazement looking about this city. Growing up in a small town far to the north, he has seen so much in his 2 weeks of adventuring. A lot of darkness, a lot of fighting, in this fantastical, magical city, and the palace growing ever larger in the distance, ever nearer as they follow Aquila's lead, is all so amazing. Eventually they arrive at the gates to the palace grounds and see the vast structures all about. It seems Aethan is no stranger to having many dignitaries coming and going, and thus have constructed a palace grounds outside of their main castle to suit the living needs of those who come to be part of the court, who come as messengers, diplomats, and all manner of guests. Aquila and Remus raise the name of Felix Augustus and are welcomed in. The party, too, is brought in and given space within the local stables to park their wagon horse as they follow the two dignitaries into the palace. They are made to wait in the entry hall and look about them as the massive staircases and several floors range about them. In the distance, echoing through halls, they hear the vague sounds of some courtly estate being argued. It seems there are many rooms here designed, much like a throne room, as a hall for discussion, issues to be brought forth, where dignitaries and diplomats can speak with each other openly. After some time, the party and their dignitaries are led through the lower floors of the building, down to a hall with the feel of a large hotel to it. Doors line it, all of them seemingly lead to different rooms made available to the guests of Aethan. They're eventually led to an area where the rooms of Aquila and Remus are marked and presented to them. Excusing himself, Remus takes his bags into his rooms and explains he'll have a bit of setting up to do. Aquila as well prepares her bags to go in, returns to the party and waits for the door to close. As it does, she tells the party she would like a private word with them and invites them into her room. Once inside, Aquila explains that she is very grateful for the way that the party had dealt with the debt collectors that came after her and her family, and she appreciated that there had been no serious questionings of her from that point onward. The amazing job the party had done protecting her and delivering her here seems necessary to give them all a special reward outside of the contract that Felix had promised them. First, she presents the bounty to them for the delivery of the two dignitaries and signs it, stating that their safe arrival has occurred, and telling them that they are free to take it to any local guild hall where they can be expected to be paid full price for the work that they had done for Felix. But first, she wanted to offer them all something before they left. She said she's ever grateful, and if the party should ever need anything, to always come and speak to her. But in exchange for having gotten rid of the debt collectors for her, she offered the party an option. Each of them. She pulled out a large coin purse and produced a pile of platinum pieces, each of which worth 10 gold. She then stated to the party that all of them could have 5 platinum, 50 gold pieces in exchange for the work that they had done for her, or, if they would prefer, a favor. She explains, as an official dignitary, a member of the Andrana family, and now assigned to grow roots here in Aethen, she has quite a bit of influence, and if there was ever anything any of them would want, she would do everything in her power to get it for them. The party took a moment. Many of them had not ever been embroiled in the world of politics, dignitaries, diplomats, and the like, and the coin shone so real in front of them. One by one, each of them said that they would take the coin for now, and that Aquila should ever always contact them if she ever has work for them in the future. One party member, however, did not take the coin. The halfling Milo stood staring at the coin in front of him, and looked about at the party he had been traveling with for 2 weeks now, as they all pocketed their coin. He had seen the party fighting amongst themselves. They had seen the party engaged in such horrid violence against bandits, against the debt collectors, against the shifters. His whole life he had never seen such things going on. And thinking back to how his conversation with Aquila went, Ashish seemed to take pride in her manipulation and considered his friendly demeanor and openness to be a detriment to himself. Milo thought about the dark world of adventuring. He turned to Aquila and stated that he would in fact like to take advantage of the favor instead. Aquila paused. Everyone else had already taken the coin, and so she was curious why the young Milo would be interested in a favor. Milo would say, simply, that he quite liked Ramus. He found this elven city amazing, and the thought of rubbing shoulders with royalty, nobility, and maybe one day having tea with a princess was too enchanting of an experience to pass up. And so Milo asked Aquila if, as a favor, he'd be able to join Keela and Ramus from now on, an assistant in their dignitary's work here. The party stood silently as they turned. Milo avoided eye contact for a moment and then smiled back at all of them. I feel like the adventuring life, as I've seen it so far, is just not for me. It's all a bit violent, a bit angry, a bit without that fantastical element I always thought it would have. The party nodded slowly. Actually, excuse me, Milo said, leaving the room and finding himself a space to be alone for a little bit. The party cast their eyes about. They had made it through several dangerous scrapes, and only now, having succeeded in their job, have they lost their first party member. The now smaller party then left the palace, finding their way out into the city of Corella. Their excited mood for having completed their first real job together soured by a sad note to the world. With their new payment note in hand, the party look about. They know they'll have to find a guild house eventually to exchange it for a bit of gold. And perhaps look about this new magical city for a place that they've never seen before. Rasmussen speaks up, stating that if they're going to be in an elvish city of magic, they should look around for a truly magical store. Figure out if there's anything they want, then go exchange the bounty for the coin. That way they will know where to go once they have the money in hand. The party agrees and begins following Rasmussen on his search throughout the city for his shop of magical needs. It is an hour later when the party finds themselves outside the strangest structure they've seen so far in Corella. A large building that seems to be made entirely of stone. Not to say it is brick or stacked stones held together by some sort of cement, but a single large stone carved to look like the entrance into a tiny cave. Rasmussen finds himself staring at it, something familiar about the building. As he takes his first step into the cave entrance, he's hit by an immediate wave of heat and the distant clang, clang, clang of metal being worked. It seems this is a smithy. And as Rasmussen leads the party down the sweltering heat of the hallway, they cross into an open area where they see a large smelter, several tables stacked with armors and weapons, and a Benor dwarf working the smith. As a dwarf turns around, he greets Rasmussen with a traditional greeting of their people, and the two shake hands. Rasmussen asks him, "What's a Benor dwarf doing so far from the mountains?" And the man explains that his family has always had a store in Corella, and every 100 years or so they draw lots to see what unlucky member of the family must make their way out here to run the storefront. They get regular deliveries of the Benor metal, and thus make a killing in the city of magic with that rare metal that holds enchantments stronger than any other. Rasmussen and the party begin asking the man about their wares, describing amazing things they might want weapons to do. It is then, however, they begin to learn a bit of the reality of the world of magical artifacts, that it is quite expensive. The man offers them a few opportunities on how to make some quick coin, but they all involve quite a bit of travel and, uncomfortably for the few party members, the exchanging of people for coin. Finding the air altogether too hot now, Tortuga finds himself scratching at the scar of his own slavitude as he excuses himself. The party, quickly picking up on the energy, excuse themselves as well and thank the dwarf for showing them about their wares as they all head out into the open air of the city. They decide to break the tension a bit. They'll get a bit of lunch and head over to the guild house, get a bit of coin in their pockets, and try to cheer themselves up. Today turning sour more and more as it goes on. Quickly, the party finds themselves outside the guild house, a fantastical structure looking almost like an ancient Roman temple. No walls stand about the exterior of the building, simply a large roof held aloft by even larger columns. The building has this open-air feel to it, and they watch as many adventurers, most of them elvish within the city, come and go doing their business. The guild hall, in fact, was a system set up by the elves long ago, a way to exchange mail, jobs, and all sort of information all throughout the world. Great efforts have been done to put up such similar halls in many other cities in the world. But this massive structure is the center of it all, here in Corella. Making their way in, the party is amazed at the scale of it, of the many different adventurers coming and going, of the dozens of clerical workers here handing out jobs and coin. The party brings their contract from Felix Augustus to the first available worker, and are quickly paid the coin for their delivery. Again, while it is a lump sum that they had not seen for any jobs in the past, it's not quite enough to pay for some of the more amazing wares they had been shown, as things come into clearer focus. The party agrees that they should quickly find more work. It seems if they ever want to make their way to magical gear, coin is king. Asking the worker about what available jobs they have, she states that they do have a job that was privately posted that just recently swapped to a public availability, meaning it had been up for a couple of weeks at this point. She explains that they got a letter for a missing student. It seems to happen quite often that the college here sends students out on journeys to explore the rules of magic, to come up with their own ways and means about the weave. And sometimes they go too long on their journeys or get themselves in a dangerous spot and never return. The party agrees that this could be an interesting job, and the posting's offer of about 400 gold pieces is immediately attractive to them for just trying to find some lost students somewhere nearby. With their acceptance of the job, they are handed a letter and a bit of information. The job was posted by two people, one of which a friend of the lost student named Yaleli, and a letter that she had written for this job, explaining that her friend had gone off on an important job for the school. A experimental paper she was writing required her to find somewhere nearby to do some experimenting. She stated she believed that she had found just the ingredients she needed to continue her work, but had been gone for 2 weeks too long at the point the letter was written. Yoleli thus wanted to post this job up with all the coins she had available for someone to go out and find her missing friend. As a co-signer was the professor of the transmutation school. She had posted a fair bit of coin onto the job to make it more enticing, though no personal information was offered by her. The party accepted the job and began reading over the letter, looking for any information they could find. In it, they found that the student was a member of the transmutation school. Makes sense with the professor's note on it. It seems this had been initially meant for another adventuring friend of hers, someone named Valandria, who it seems had never come to take up the job. One final name is mentioned, another friend of the group, someone who was unavailable to help. I really hope one day that Eric will GM a campaign live on Twitch. I know what happened with this one, but boy can dream. Thank you very much, Insane. Sorry, I've been avoiding chat for a little bit. I was just very much in the stream of things. Oh, hey yo, Halfrost, how are you doing? And I'm sorry you can't stay for the stream, Sour Cake, but as you know, the VOD will be up and I'll work to get everything archived as quickly as possible. Seems another friend of this group named Cynthia should be still here within the city. Her own experiments seem require her to remain instead of going out somewhere fantastical. And she might be another source of information. The party begins making their plan. They decide they should probably pose a few questions to this professor and the friend, Cynthia, while they're here in the city before trying to find out where exactly to begin their search for the missing Hannah. However, as this discussion continues, Rasmussen takes note of something amazing within the guild hall. Perhaps it was the run-in with a fellow Benor dwarf, or simply his keen senses always drawing his attention to it. But in the corner of the building, he sees an amazing sight. A full suit of Moldir plate mail stood up in the corner. Crazy Sergu, thank you for the follow, and welcome to the stream. To put things into perspective, the Benor dwarves are famously known as being the main miners, creators, and molders of a rare metal called the Moldir metal. Not the strongest in the world, the Grimdol metal of the Caxoparian dwarves is famously known for being the strongest metal in the world. The trait of Moldir, however, is that it is fantastically strong. And more importantly, it soaks up enchantment and holds it in a way that no other metal in the world can. Enchanted weapons and armor are always a thing of high value, but over time, some magic can actually fade from certain metals, and certain metals cannot be enchanted as effectively as others. Copper is known to be very receptive to enchantment, but is rarely the chosen metal for armor and weapons in this day and age. Steel can hold on to it fine, but is found to not hold some of the strongest enchantments. Moldir, being on a toughness level greater than steel, and on a capability of holding strong enchantments even greater than copper, has become one of the most expensive metals on the market. And seeing a standing suit made purely of Moldir is an absolutely awe-inspiring sight. Something that would range in the hundreds of thousands of platinum. An ungodly heirloom. Fully still, the suit stands in the corner. Rasmussen finds himself halfway across the hall without even realizing he is approaching out of sheer amazement. The handicraft of his people, a sum that much used as a decorative suit. He approaches the suit of armor and stares up at it, reaching out his arm. He places a finger on the metal as the head turns to look at him. and he hears a voice saying, "Excuse me, why are you touching me?" The suit takes a step back as Rasmussen realized he had just touched a man that had been standing perfectly still and wearing this highly expensive suit of armor. He finds himself apologizing profusely to the strange man. It seems that the man in front of him has been standing here all day looking for an opportunity for work. And Rasmussen would love the opportunity to meet a man able to either afford or inherit a suit of armor of this caliber. He invites the strange, nervous man along with him to meet the rest of his party, that they just recently got a job and, in fact, had just recently lost a party member. If he would not all be interested, the man stops him for a moment and says, Will you be touching me like that more, or... Of course not, sorry, I thought you were, put a decoration in the corner, you're so still, and I'd not seen a full play, bend over anywhere before. As you can tell, I'm a Molder dwarf myself, and I was just absolutely enchanted by it. The man accepts his apology and says he'd be interested in joining the job, then decides he would step in with them and see how much the money would be. Would you ever consider putting character portraits up during story time? Helps with visualizing. Alright, well, I could take a moment to do that. How's this? I'll go ahead and continue through the story for a little bit, Junie. And once I find a good pausing point or a moment where I need to give my throat a bit of a break, we'll go ahead and get everyone's characters up and showing. I don't think we need the title up anymore as is, so that should be fine. The man is thus brought before the party and introduces himself as Perch. Just Perch. Understandable, Juniper. I'll work on getting that up and running as quickly as I can. And the party introduces themselves to him. They're a bit taken in. They've not seen anyone set up in such a fantastical suit before. And the thought of having what must be a very experienced adventurer here with them is all the more exciting. Though they quickly find this man to be a little odd, very nervous at times, and seemingly really uncomfortable with protracted conversations with people. Maybe he's simply a very straight-cut fighter type and isn't socialized much in his life, but it's still, all in all, a peculiar meeting with this man. They explained a bit about the job they are doing, looking for a student, and that today they will be questioning the professor and a friend of hers within the city. Perch nods his head and says he'll come along then, wherever they need him. As the party splits to tackle their jobs, Rasmussen sets out to find the student, wherever she might be, and has Tortuga join him on that journey. Meanwhile, Pharaoh and Perch head off in the direction of the professor's class, or at least where they think it might most likely be, so that they can ask her a bit more about the job that she had posted and see if they can narrow their search down. Thus begins their quest to find the girl, Hannah. And with that, I'll take a bit of a moment to get a few pictures up and running for everybody. I actually think I have a few available, so I'll have to move them up and around a bit. Here we are. Definitely have a Pharaoh ready. Let's see what else we've got. Hi there, Pharaoh. Let's get Tortuga out here as well. We'll also need to move him a bit up in the order of things. Ah, there we go. True art, I agree. There you can see Malachite, our little ranger. And who else should we have? Rasmussen. And then finally, our newest party member, Perch. Lol. Bird person is 6 foot tall. Hell yeah, she is. Alright, okay, that is adorable. So cute, love it. Alright. I'll keep this in mind for story time then, to make sure I have all of my characters up and available for you all. And there we have it. Just a little arrangement of the current party. I love how you have these pictures on standby. Yes, well, I had to use them a few streams ago when I was doing the full character introduction stream. So it was, I had them saved in an easy to access corner for whenever I would need them again in the future. Yes, it is a bulky dude. In fact, the only party member that is canonically taller than Pharaoh, I believe. Perch stands, I think, at about 6'4", but he weighs quite a bit more than you would expect a man of his stature to weigh. The bird drawing always reminds me of Lord Shen. Yes, we actually make quite a few Lord Shen jokes when it comes to Pharaoh. There is just something about that very noble and dainty bird that just sort of holds that energy. Now then. The tardy dungeon is there a tardy dungeon master doodle? 1 second. I don't know about a doodle, and I do have a photo. I just don't know actually what, like, quality and level it is in. I don't know if I have a PNG form of it, so I might be able to do something a little scuffed. We could take a quick look in my tardy closet and see if I can give you guys what you're looking for. 1 moment, please. All right. So, while I'm looking around for this, how is the story going for everybody? How do you all feel about what's been going on so far? Do you all have any questions about the party, how it's shaping up, where it's going? Any questions about the world that I could answer or resolve for you? Yeah, it's not a PNG. Well, I mean, it's not transparent. If you guys want, I can copy this link and plug it in for a second, I guess. Oh God, this is gonna be bad, honestly. All right, let's see. Image, add source, new source. God. All right, let's shrink this up quite a bit. Oh lords. Okay. All right, give me a second. I gotta change this transform a little bit, I think. This is definitely too wide. If I make it less wide, it might get really squished. Yeah. All right. So I'll just put him just kind of over in the corner a little bit. Just a little out of the way of everything. Oh, man. Is there a turret? Yep. Almost 2 meters tall and in full armor. He doesn't need any weapons. Just sit on the enemy. Miss story time. Milford Estate was fun, but brain small. Think hurt. Gotcha. Crop it. Duh. Okay, I mean, do you guys want me to take a break from the story? You were the chosen one, Eric. You're supposed to bring balance to the Force. Yep, yeah, I gotcha. Alright, give me 2 seconds. I will get this baby up and cropped. And I'll get everything just in a little more order for you. So we can have the rest of the stream without interruptions. That means you guys have to not interrupt anymore to ask me to bring out more art, okay? Because we're taking a real big break in the story beats to get this up and running. Alright, do full crop. That's good. File save. Yep, we'll replace that. And we will see then. Alright, let's go to pictures. Find that little baby. And there we go. I am grander than all of you. Alright. Hey, kids, you want to buy some magic drugs? Hell yeah. We'll get everybody just arrayed a little smoother. Beautifully done. Now then. The pair of... Isn't that what charms are? Yeah, to a degree. Now then. The pair of Pharaoh and Perch thus make their way into the college district. It seems within the city of Corella, the college is not so much a singular major learning structure, but instead a district of the city. All the buildings here are made in a similar fashion to the residential and business areas. Some double stacked, some a bit larger than others to accommodate more of a lecture hall design, but still, the feeling of the city is always present, and all that changes is a shift in the energy. Instead of traders, merchants, and all the like of the city milling about, yelling, talking, going about their business, there are wizards everywhere, or at least wizards in training. Young elves going to and fro between classes, large books and bags of school supplies, moving about from structure to structure, catching up in their classes and the business that they must go about. Pharaoh and Perch thus ask a few questions and are given directions to the main lecture hall of the transmutation professor. They arrive outside the building and slowly make their way in, but as they peer through the door into the bottom floor of the structure, it seems the lecture's always in the full throes. Trying to keep themselves as quiet as possible, the two listen as the lecture goes on. The teacher discusses a bit of history of the world and a period of time called the Cursed Period. That's not to say anything historically horrible happened here, but instead, this was a very unfortunate time for transmutationists. It was a necessary time, the teacher explains. Long ago, there was a wizard named Adamus Key. This man is hailed as the father of modern magic. Not to say he invented magic in any way, shape, or form, nor shared the hidden knowledges of the darkest and greatest powers of the world. No, simply long ago when the weave was made, it was not explained to mortals. Many of the most intrepid and willful, intelligent and powerful of people in the world found their own way to connect to the weave, to draw on its powers, and would go about creating the first magics for themselves. But in that old time, spells, even the simplest, took a long time to study, create, and even to cast. A minute was expected in the casting of a fireball, as it required long invocations of chains of ancient knowledge. And the fact was, every caster, even if their spells achieved the same things, had to create from scratch their own unique calling on the weave. Their spells would essentially include the caster's name, the reasons for acquiring their magic, the exact size, shape, color, elements, every last detail of the spell, who was casting it, where, why, and how, had to be invoked in its creation. Interestingly, due to the complex and specific nature of this, magic at that time was also impossible to counterspell, as it was so individual and independent that ripping the weave around it apart would require a doubly intricate spellcasting ability. But as you can imagine, this magic, while amazing and fantastical, was never particularly widespread. While the most powerful, intelligent people of their time could make devastating use of this power, it was altogether inaccessible for those without eons available to them, or willingness to accept that perhaps the most powerful thing they could ever have was the casting of a firebolt over a minute-long invocation of magical connections, and of great expense to maintain their connection to the weave throughout that time. Adamus Key was thus most famous for his ability to break down the ancient ways of magic. He is the father of magic, for he quite literally wrote the book that built the foundation of learned wizardry. He was able to find all the necessary parts, peel out the unnecessary, and create a standardized system of casting. Simpler invocations, a higher dependence on certain verbal or somatic components, the simplification of old material components into their bare essentials. Adamus Key created every foundation for every school of magic that exists. And when he wrote the book on transmutation, started an era that all transmutationists are aware of. For while the magic itself was made simpler, standardized, something that anyone could, with enough dedication, learn and repeat, it encouraged many people to go about the art of crafting magical artifacts with a similar viewpoint. That corners could be cut, that not everything needed to be recorded and invoked. And thus, for a period of time about 1,000 years ago, every person with any panache for magic began making artifacts, and began doing so with the idea that not everything about it needed to be prepped or recorded. Thus, for a time, the world was flooded with an influx of magical artifacts. At first, people were excited, until the cracks began to show. As anyone who goes about making an artifact will quickly learn, if every detail is not accounted for, every magical connection and enchantment placed on it not perfectly balanced, things can go quite interestingly wrong. The cursed era in the magic of transmutation was not a historic devastation like the Sundering, nor an era where many suffered ungodly ways, but is simply known for its influx in cursed magical artifacts that flooded the world, many of which remain unaccounted for, unknown, unrecorded in every way, shape, or form. But in your life, if you ever encounter a cursed magical artifact, the odds are about 70% that they came from this period of time in history. That time where the first book of transmutation was publicly released, and the world was flooded with novice creations. The lecture then comes to an end, and as the few members of the class begin gathering up and heading out, the heavily armored figures of Pharaoh and Perch push through the crowd heading in. The professor sees the pair and sits down at her desk as the classroom empties out. They approach her and explain that they had accepted the job. Bootleg artifacts cause mass confusion and destruction. Pretty cool. Not mass destruction, but most certainly a nervousness around magical artifacts for the time. And they ask if there's any additional information that she could provide about the missing girl, Hannah. After all, they need to know where to begin searching. Where exactly did she report she would be beginning her experiments? What was she doing with them? And all the information she could share. The professor then gave a weighty sigh. She began explaining to the pair that there isn't a lot she could actually explain to them. It seems Hannah has always been an overachieving member of the transmutation school, always fascinated with learning the exact rules of magic and finding ways to break them. Her most recent obsession had to do with two key elements of the way that magic works in the world. The requirement for material components for so many spells. Hannah always questioned this. She always figured there was a way around this requirement, was fascinated with the opportunity to experiment away with it. The other one she was most recently interested in was the requirement for attunement to many magical artifacts. How it was strange that people could only be able to use a few magical items at a time, and that they would only work once one had found themselves magically in tune with the items. The professor believes those were the core of her current experiment, but given their overreaching influence on the world of magic, Hannah's overachieving nature, and this being one of her final major projects, Hannah had worked hard to maintain herself as secretive as possible. The professor pulls out a map that Hannah had provided of her expected routes for experiments, and showed that they were vague and broad. At the core, it seems Hannah would be heading to some southern end of the Authorial Valley, a region vast in its size, over 50-mile radius valley, filled with the ancient Authorial Forest. A massive place to search, though knowing someone's in the southern half certainly cuts it down by quite a long size. The professor states there's not much else she can go on. Hannah was being intentionally secretive with this project, stating that she believed she could rewrite some of the rules of magic with what she was working on. As Pharaoh and Perch thank her and begin making their way out of the room, the professor stops them for a moment and asks them a favor. That whenever they come back into the town to report what they had found to the guild hall, to please immediately afterwards come straight to her and let her know. The guild hall tends to take several days to report information, and she would like to hear what happened to Hannah as soon as possible. The two nod and take a step out of the door. Once outside, they hear the door behind them lock. And they gaze at each other for a moment. Barrow and Perch, curious about the professor's interest in this information. They then head off in search of Rasmussen and Tortuga, who are on their own way to find some more information. Rasmussen and Tortuga have found their way through the college district, though a bit confused. They had expected to be finding a large college building, and the way that Corella does things had left them utterly baffled and wandering about for about half an hour before they eventually made their way to Cynthia's house. They knock on the door, and a young elven girl answers. When they ask her if she is Cynthia, she shakes her head and says she lives up the stairs. The girl then yells up for Cynthia and tells her that she has some guests here, where the girl rolls her eyes and seems to go back to whatever she was doing. It seems this place is in fact given to 2 students to live in, and neither of them seem overly excited when the other has guests. Then a young elvish girl with black hair comes down the stairs and approaches the pair. This is Cynthia, one of Hannah's friends. Tortuga and Rasmussen begin talking to Cynthia, asking her if she knows about Hannah and her whereabouts. Cynthia explains that Hannah went out on a experimental journey, kind of an assignment the school gives out as people are approaching the end of their schooling. They're responsible for setting a timetable, proposing an experiment, and coming back with a new discovery. And that Hannah had always been an overachiever in their transmutation classes, giving everyone a bit of a bad name from time to time with how well she was able to do things. Cynthia herself has always been a bit jealous of her, though she finds she's able to keep up quite a bit, holding the second place position in most of their transmutation classes. The pair then ask her what else she can tell them about where Hannah went. Cynthia seems a bit nervous at first, then invites the 2 up to her room, as she explains that Hannah was being very secretive about this. She had told Cynthia, in fact, that she felt she was onto something very big, and that she might be able to rewrite some of the old rules of magic. But because of that, she was being secretive. So secretive, in fact, that she'd in fact gone to the guild hall herself to hire a pair of guards to come along with her. Usually a request is made to the school to have a guard set up if people are going to some dangerous places. But it seemed Cynthia wanted everything, or Hannah wanted everything, quiet and under the table. Hannah explained that the day before she left, Hannah had finally found a pair that she felt comfortable with to be able to guard her, but she found them to be a bit rough looking and wasn't sure how they would behave once out camping. So Hannah told the friend of hers to be safe, as she handed her a token that she had had all of her life. A smooth river stone that had been enchanted with luck. A well-known artifact amongst most adventurers, known as a luck stone. She had given it to Hannah as she departed. And she told the party that likely she would still have it with her. And that if they find it, and they find Hannah, to please come back and tell her whatever they find out. She even offered the pair a bit of coin, giving each of them 5 gold pieces if they would promise to let her know whatever they find out. The pair agree as they leave Cynthia's dorm and head out into the streets. They make their way out to the city to find their other party members so they can all convene and discuss what they have learned. That night, the party gather in a tavern to share their information. Hannah definitely headed northwards, into the Authorial Valley woods, though somewhere along the southern side of it. They decide they'll probably head to the village that they had come through on their way here. They had been allowed to camp out outside of its bounds on their way down and thought it would be a good jumping off point, and maybe a likely position that Hannah stopped through on her way into the woods. They also discussed that Hannah seems to be doing a bit of experimenting, trying to invent or discover something that could break some of the rules of magic. Crow and Perch go on to state how the professor had asked them to come straight to her after they had reported to the guild hall to tell them everything that they had learned, that they had gotten some strange vibes from her during the conversation. Rasmussen and Tortuga explained that they too had been asked by Cynthia to come and report whatever they had found to her, and that they would be able to recognize Hannah if she had a smooth river stone with her, which was Hannah's own lucky stone, or which was Cynthia's own lucky stone, which she had sent with her friend, and that they had learned that a pair of private guards had been hired, and they were a pair of rough-looking fellows, though everything beyond that is a secret. Party then beds down for the night, considering what they will be doing next. They know they're going to be heading northward to the valley to find a missing student, but they're all lost in a bit of thought. During the night, Rasmussen looks over a letter he had picked up while he'd been in the guild hall from Felix Augustus, inviting him back to Polemont whenever he would like, and explaining that he would actually be in need of a man to train some of his troops on the best ways to deal with the gnomish inhabitants of a nearby nation called the Pawnee, which Rasmussen had been in for a time. Seeing this as an opportunity to encourage the Polomonti connection with the Pawnee, Rasmussen sets his mind. As the party begins their search for the girl, he decides he'll make his leave for a short time, just a couple of days to pop over the border, and to see if he can tilt some diplomatic things in a preferable direction. Tortuga, too, has something he wishes to do. Their new hired-on party member, this Perch, is someone he's curious about. The suit of armor he wears, the way he behaves, it's all a bit strange for him. And so Tortuga waits until the dead of night before sneaking out of his room in the tavern and making his way to Perch's room. He goes to the door and begins slowly turning the handle, silently, without a sound, as he begins to slowly push it open. Suddenly the door stops its movement as Tortuga hears the sound of a bed creaking and the clank, clank, clank of metal boots approaching it. He backs off quickly into the shadows as the door is thrown open and the fully clad Perch steps from the room and looks about the hallways, not seeing what had caused his door to begin to open slowly. He closes the door again and heads back to bed. As Tortuga listens, he hears the clank, 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 and then the sound of a man sitting into his bed. Excuse me. As Tortuga listens, he does not hear the man remove his armor, nor does he hear him lay down to sleep. Curious, Tortuga heads to bed. The next morning, the party gathers up, and prepares to head out on their journey. Rasmussen explains to the party that he will actually be taking a quick leave once they head northward. He has some business in Pulamont, but it should only take him a couple of days' travel there and back, and that he should be back in time to help them out with the tail end of their search if needed, or if worst comes to worst, he'll meet them back in Corella for whatever their next job will be. The party agrees, but decides to do a bit more shopping on their way out of town, as they look about for a place that might hold some magical potions, odds and ends, and whatever could be helpful as their journey progresses. They see a strange store on their way out, painted oddly with an array of strange murals, all of which invoking a view of the swamplands to the far south, with many different plants and animals painted all across the building. In the windows are hung dead creatures, strange grasses, roots, and jars of mysteriously colored liquid. The party stops for a moment to head into this strange store, their last stop on the way out, and maybe a place with some hidden treasures. As the door opens, they are immediately accosted by the foul stench of strange mixtures and concoctions. The store is littered with haphazard shelves filled with mason jars, bags, and other strange holding devices filled with dried grasses, bottles of eyes. An entire alligator head is mounted to the ceiling. Not the wall, but the ceiling, and pointed downward, with several drying herbs hung from its teeth. And behind the counter they see a strange, mud-covered man who leans up from behind his counter, waves to the newly entered groups, and begins to welcome them into his store. Well, howdy, and welcome on into my place. Glad that you all found your way into my spot. Oh, no problem at all. I've been walking around here in a while now, and I'm always excited to see a new customer coming through. Looking for a bit of wisdom too for them to be filling. What all can I be getting you going for? You got any herbs, potions? I got a family secret right here. Oh, I also got a bit of special going if you need it. With that, the man slams a large mason jar filled with a milky green liquid. Fresh in today, and on sale too. You can get yourself this whole jar of frog juice if you need it. Tortuga stares at the man, half understanding what he's saying, and half not. He points at the jar. Did you say that was frog juice? It sure is fresh out freshly today. Bit of bile, bit of juice, all the good stuff in it. I'll part with that for only 5 copper pieces. Tortuga looks about the space, entirely taken aback by everything. He nods and slowly places 5 copper pieces on the counter and picks up his freshly pot jar of frog juice. Taking a moment, the other party members then grab the man's attention and ask for things that they might actually be able to use, saying they're in the market for health potions or anything that they'd be able to immediately use. The man nods and waves his hand, saying that he has something exactly that they need. And he goes down behind his counter and pulls up 3 bottles of a strange orangish liquid. It seems to have been a health potion at one time. Its bright red color is still somewhat visible in areas, but swirling in it is a strange yellowish solution that seems to be diluting itself throughout the potions. These here are a family special recipe, a way that you could turn 1 health potion into 3. Just add in a few of my family's secret ingredients, and you could get yourself multiplying potion like nobody business. I promise you it is just as good as any health potion you had anywhere. With that, Tortuga sets his heels, turns about, and heads out onto the street with his jar in hand. He climbs onto the wagon and stares straight forward, saying nothing, until Rasmussen asks him what went wrong. What happened? What's happened in the store? You seem a bit out of wares, Tortuga. Tortuga turns to him and slowly and quietly says, he pitched in the health potions. Him and his family pitched in the health potions. I can't believe he pitched in the health potions. Very quickly, the rest of the party make their way out of the store onto the wagon as they all head northward, off to the village along the border, in the hopes to get as far away from this strange man and his strange store as quickly as possible, leaving behind the Mortem family's secret health potions, and taking with them a mason jar of fresh frog juice. And there, I would like to take a little bit of a recess for me to drink some water, relax my voice, and prepare for moving on to the final section we will be talking about today. So, how is everybody doing? Oh shit, storekeeper straight from the bayou. Hell yeah. That is a man from Mortem, a swamp city deep in the sundering swamplands. A city built on planks and filled with many bards and entertainers, though it has a strange sort of residence all about the outskirts as well. Oh shit, are you guys talking about the wild magic chart? Hell yeah, nah. My favorite one is the one that turns everybody into plants. That is just so ridiculous and amazing. That reminds me of a scene from Airplane where the one person is sweating profusely. No, I am very happy that none of my party has yet gotten their hands on anything quite so random as wild magic to play around with. Gotta talk about wild magic table, I'm happy. Hell yeah, little pink Bowser, you knock it out. Eric really went for a drink after this story beat. Hell yeah. Gotta give me some frog juice going down. Make everything go a little smoother, don't you think? Oh, there we go. I've missed the last few streams. Did the heist already happen? Well, firstly, no, the heist has not happened already. And also, we are still about a dozen sessions behind where the actual campaign is. We have a lot of content to get caught up on before we're actually to where the party is currently. So don't worry. Things still have a long ways to go. We still have an entire party member you haven't met yet. That we'll get to probably during the next arc, which might come in the next stream or so. But for now, we're still quite a ways behind. But Claire the guard is in the heist, right? We'll definitely see how the party goes about things. The party is looking for poor undergrad who got lost during transmutation thesis. Thank you, little pink Bowser. That is the perfect breakdown of this. Yeah, she's out on her graduate thesis trying to figure something out, and she just hasn't reported back. Oh, man. So how's everybody doing? Are you guys all enjoying the story time? What do you think of our new party member, Perch, in his big suit of armor? What do you think of the job the party is going on, and how does everybody feel about Milo's exit? His search for something more fantastical and pleasant. Wait. So how many items can have invoke wild magic? Could someone wear a whole set of wild magic and cast like 10 random effects at once? So in D&D, at least in 5th edition, you can only have 3 items attuned to you at a time. And also, casting magic has its own set of action economy rules. That means it's highly unlikely for you to be able to get more than 1 or 2 wild magic effects occurring within 1 round. It could be possible, especially with some homebrew magic items getting thrown in, but it'd be very difficult to get more than 2 effects to go off at the same time. Nah, we still doing setup. Okay, loving it. I gotta get going, but I loved everything so far. I just wanted to send a message before I left. Take care, everyone. All right, Felgrand the Dragon. Hope you enjoyed. First one, most popular character pool in the party. Introduction to... He won most popular, like, backstory, I believe. He was one of the players that actually got me a full, like, text story written up as his backstory instead of, like, a list of what his life was like. So I think that probably translated pretty heavily into getting a really good, like, storytelling across on his backstory. You can get 2 or 3 if you get lucky or unlucky on your roll. One of the possible outcomes is to cause more rolls. Oh, that's true. Gotcha. Thanks for the explanation. Alrighty then. We'll go ahead and roll into the last half an hour or so of today's stream. The party thus heads northwards, searching for the lost student. They make their way about a half a day's travel northwards and arrive near the border between Aethen and the Ethereal Valley. Here in the distance, they see the village they had camped out at on their way down, and begin setting up their camp in about the same spot, a little ways outside of the village, as per the request of the man they had spoken to on their way down. Here, Rasmussen excuses himself, saying he'll be heading further northward through the Ethereal Valley and back into Pulamont. He has a bit of a job he needs to do for Felix, but he should be back very quickly. The party nod and bid him farewell as he heads into the Ethereal Valley, a bit concerned that he may once be stopped by tax-collecting elves as they were. They wish him good luck and hope nothing goes wrong on his journey alone. With that, the party finishes setting up their camp outside the village when they see a lone figure approaching them. The man they had spoken to on the way down, it seems one of the main communicators of the village. He approaches the camp and explains that they do not mind adventurers camping out, but they would prefer nobody comes into their village in the dead of night. It can be very disruptive for people, and they would like for things to remain nice and peaceful here. The party state they understand it will be camping outside the village at night, but wondered if he would be able to help them. The party asked him a few questions about students coming through the village, and one particular girl accompanied by a pair of rougher-looking guards. He says he's not sure if he would have seen her. Quite a few students and a few adventuring parties come through their village quite a lot on their way of crossing into the Ethereal Valley. As such, it would be difficult for him to say. But if the party is in need of help, he could arrange for the elders to speak with them tomorrow morning. The party thanked the man and told him it would be very helpful. Any information in finding this girl would be good, and the sooner the better, as she has been lost for a few weeks now. The man nods and states that he is Forrester, that he works in the village most days, but occasionally will go into a forest on his own scavenging. So we'll speak to a few of the hunters as well as arranging the elders and see if anything can be found. The party thank him and set up for the night. Tortuga takes first watch here. He sets up watching the quiet village, pondering why they don't want anyone coming in at night. He finds himself at one moment muttering, "Wonder if they're a bunch of werewolves. Don't want people coming in at night and seeing them turning, probably." He stares at the village, curious. and then it is time for him to go to bed. He walks over to Perch, who had offered to take second watch for that night, and finds the man sat perfectly still, staring off into the distance. Perch approaches him quietly, slowly, wondering if the man had fallen asleep in a sitting position in his full plate mail. As he takes his first step forward towards him, Perch's head turns towards him and says, "Oh, is it my turn to take watch?" That Perch stands up and moves off to a different position where he can watch the camp and the village at the same time, wishing Tortuga good night. Tortuga lays down and stares at the man, wondering when he would have gotten any sleep while he was on watch. The party reconvene in the morning and head down into the village. There they find a few of the village elders have been arrayed to answer any questions they might have. The party described that it would be a female student coming through on her thesis, that she was going into a southern part of the forest and so likely crossed through their village before heading out into the woods. But they can't really provide much more than it would be a girl accompanied by two rough-looking guards. The elders explain that that's really not a lot for them to go on. Over the year, and especially around this time when Corella is posting its thesis explorations, many students come through, all with a wide array of adventurers brought on as guards. They do know a few that have gone through in the past month, but they don't know how much help they would be able to provide. One of the elders is able to state one fact, though, that if the group they're looking for was one of the ones that came through with a wagon, they know they didn't go any further than 5 or so miles outside the village before they would have cut into the woods. The party thanks them for this knowledge, though realizes they have no clue if Hannah left with a wagon or not, and are unsure how best to use this information at this time. Given free range to ask about the village, the party splits up to go about their different ideas of how to approach this. First, Malachite, the ranger of the group, leaves the village and begins ranging all up and down the edge of the forest, using the nearby hills to help get her a bit of a height advantage to scout the woods terrain as much as possible. Over the course of the day, she arranges a neat and orderly map to look over that shows different areas of the woods, which areas are overgrown, which areas are oldest, which are filled with clearings, and which seem to be well kept by the nearby village. She has a rather detailed map by the end of the day of the first few miles into the woods. She now knows the terrain quite a bit and will be certain it'll help her in her future explorations through the woods. Within the village, Pharaoh and Perch ask around a bit before they find a woodswoman who operates a small business out of her own hovel. She explains that she likes to sell cheap food that she finds. Rations go very quickly to adventurers coming through or anyone who falls on a hard time, and so she makes a bit of a killing selling off very low-priced grains, wild nuts, wild leeks, and the like that she's able to gather. They ask her if they know of a young student who came through and bought some supplies here, or a pair of rough, adventuring guard types. After a moment, she nods, saying she did in fact sell some food to a very rough-looking man with a heavy accent. 40 days worth of rations is what he had purchased. She remembers because of the absolute sum of it, while she supposes for a group of 3 or 4 people that they were, it would only last them a week or two, but still, it was more than she was used to selling off at one time. And she said it was a good thing they were able to load it all into the wagon that they had. She said that there were 3 of them, in fact. There was a girl and another rough fellow with them. They ask her then if they know anything about where the group had gone. She says all she knows is she overheard them talking about how deep into the woods they would be going, and that the girl had assured them they would be not going any deeper than about 5 miles in. The woman apologizes that she can't provide any more information, but Pharaoh and Perch assure her that she's given them more info than they've gotten from anywhere else. On his own mission, Tortuga goes about the village before stopping at a group of kids playing hide and seek and asking them similar questions that his party had been asking all throughout the day about a young student and a pair of guards. Most of the kids shake their heads, saying they don't really know anything about the people who come through the village. But one of the larger kids raises his hand and says to Tortuga that he knows exactly what girl he's being talked about, and that he'll be able to tell him all about where she was going and what she was doing. But first, Tortuga needs to beat all of the kids in a game of hide and seek. Tortuga narrows his eyes at the boy and thinks over what he had said. What are the odds this child actually knows anything about the lost Hannah? With all the other kids saying that they were playing at the time that she would have come through, or that none of them pay attention to it, it seems unlikely. But Tortuga knows he can't run the risk, and so agrees to their game. He'll play hide and seek against all of them. Should he win, though, the boy would have to tell him everything he knows about Hannah. And the children all look and ask what'll happen if he loses. Tortuga thinks for a moment and shows them all 10 gold pieces. More money than any child in this village had seen before. And several of the kids get an evil glint in their eye. As they tell Tortuga he'll be searching first, he has to close his eyes, put his head against the tree, and count to 100. Tortuga does. He begins counting. He hears all the children scattering about in different directions. And when he reaches 100, he turns about and begins his hunt. Tortuga had never been much of a tracker, though he figured he'd be able to do a good job of spotting people trying to hide. He had had quite a bit of time studying the art of stealth himself, and so hoped to reverse engineer things. However, as minutes grow on and eventually reach an hour, Tortuga found that he has only discovered about 12 of the 15 kids' hiding spaces. As he has them all arrayed around the tree, he's running out of time to find the last 3. He only has an hour to pull this off. With just a few minutes left, he begins searching high and low. His instincts kick in as he stops for a moment. He goes over to a nearby water barrel, plunges his hands into it, and grabs the shoulder of a child at the bottom of the basin and pulls them out as the kid spits out the reed he had been breathing through the whole time. These children were not playing fair, and one of them had hidden himself in a full barrel of water. Tortuga is desperate to find the last 2 kids, but then there's shouting as the kids declare that they have 1 minute left. Tortuga stops and looks about at all the kids, watching their eyes, watching their expressions. His eyes slowly turn to the building next to him and begin tilting upwards. He takes a few steps back and makes a running leap at the hovel. Landing on the thatched roof, He sees a pair of children buried in the hay and thatchwork that makes up the roof. Just in time. Tortuga brings the two children down from the top of the building. These little children are more dangerous than he realized. As he begins to say, "All right, so I won. So that means," as the kids say no, now he has to hide, and all of them will look for him. Irritation creeps across his face, but Tortuga agrees, as all the kids close their eyes and begin counting. Tortuga watches as he sees the light of many of them peeking between their fingers, looking through material. These children are not playing fair. He dashes about the village, trying to think of the best place to hide. He makes his way as far out of the village as he can towards his camp, and then down the road as fast as he can run, before finding a nearby ditch to conceal himself in. He knows a majority of these kids probably won't look outside the village, but if they were peeking the whole time, he's not sure how good stealth would really do. He knows now, as he hears the kids shouting, not only were they looking out of between their fingers, but it seems like they had cut their counting probably a good 10 seconds or so too short. Tortuga is really starting to hate children. In the distance, he hears them shouting and laughing as they begin looking around the village. He begins to relax his breathing. And then tension grows as he hears the crumpling of the stones of the road as soft footsteps approach him closer and closer. Then looking down on him, Tortuga sees the large boy that had promised to tell him what he had learned. "Well, I found you. I think that means I win." Tortuga is silent. He slowly stands and brushes the dirt from his legs as he angrily pulls the coins from his pouch and tosses them on the ground. He makes his way dejectedly back to camp to sit and stew on the fact that he really hates children. That evening, the party reconvenes to share all that they had discovered. Tortuga shares that every child in this village is a little shit who shouldn't be listened to or trusted. They're all cheating and will lie about whatever they have to in order to get a reward. Malachite shares the map she has made of the terrain of the woods and explains that she could start doing a scouting mission throughout them with the party's help, but she needs to know exactly where to start looking. And Pharaoh and Perch share what they had learned. The group thereafter was definitely in a wagon, so they will not be further than 5 miles east of here. And not only that, but according to the forester, they were not going more than 5 miles deep into the woods. This gives them still a large area of untrekked wood for them to search, but a more manageable region. Looking through the area on her map, Malachite deduces that if they all work all day, they'd probably be able to get a sweep of that entire area over the course of 4 or 5 days. Though they'll have to be very careful. They don't know if anything had happened. They don't know exactly what kind of signs they'll be looking for out there. The party then hears footsteps approaching. As they look up, they see the forester that has been helping them set everything up, approaching with a pair of hunters in heel, each of which with bows over their shoulders. Forrester explains that these are the 2 main hunters of the village and that he had brought them along to see if they could answer any questions. Speaking with the party, the hunters seem unable to provide any new information. But with a bit of clever talking, Tortuga asks for their help. One of the hunters rolls their eyes as she heads back to the village. She has her own jobs to take care of. She can't be wasting time looking for some lost girl in the woods. Looking imploringly at the forester and the other hunter, Tortuga asks again. And these two agree to help. They sit down as the party explains to them their plan, the region of the woods they're going to be combing through, and how best the hunter and the forester can comb through different portions to help narrow down their search. The two agree that first thing in the morning they'll head out into the woods on the eastern side of this area and begin their search going up and down the woods throughout that region, while the party will start on the western side. We'll hopefully start working towards the center. With two more people helping, this will shorten down their sweep time to maybe 3 or 4 days of looking through the woods. Rested and assured, the hunter and the forester head back to their village, leaving the party to arrange watch for the evening. Perch offers to take first watch, and Pharaoh offers to join him. Malachite and Tortuga head to bed. In the dead of night, Pharaoh and Perch sit side by side, looking out over the village. Pharaoh turns to Perch as she says, "You are a very strange person in many ways, aren't you?" I guess in some ways, but I don't think I'm too weird. Am I too weird? I try not to be too weird at times, but I know I can come across. It's quite all right. I'm not accusing you of anything. Pharaoh sees here a bit of an opportunity with this soldier of a man. His nervousness but obvious abilities seem perfect. An opening. Pharaoh begins talking with the man about herself, about her beliefs, her religion. She explains how her and her people see the world of a massive cycle of life and death. A balancing act weighted between good and evil. And that her job as a cleric is to go about balancing those two sides, the positive and negative energies of the world. If there's too much positive, the scale will overcorrect. And it is her job to make sure nothing drastic must happen to the world, that everything is kept in order. She explains that sometimes that means she has a quota as a sorts that she has to fill before the world's imbalance can wake up. And that is her divine purpose. To maintain, to cultivate, to balance. In exchange for maintaining that quota, she's given the abilities to help and preserve those around her. Perch nods along. He's a bit curious about all this, but it all makes a bit of sense to him. As he looks at Pharaoh, he sees that she seems a bit nervous with this telling. That she's a bit scared how someone might react to her beliefs and some of the undertones they hold to them. Perch says he actually kind of likes that, the way she explains it. How everything requires a bit of balance, and that she shouldn't be too scared of sharing some stuff. He says he has secrets of his own, that some things about him are strange at times. With that, Perch looks at Pharaoh for a long moment before He knocks twice on the breastplate of his armor, the hollow sound of empty metal ringing out. All of us have a need to have things corrected in a way, some purpose to fill the hollowness in us, I guess. Pharaoh's keen ears listen. She doesn't know exactly what Perch is, why he said those things. But as the armor rings out, she thinks she learned something about the strange being known only to her as Perch. Wood Bogus, I'm sorry to say that there is feeling like the end of today's story time. We do have about 10 minutes left on the clock, but I don't think I'm going to find a better leaving point than that for the next few portions of the story. So instead, we're just going to take some time for everyone to have some nice chats, for everybody to ask some questions about the story, about the characters, about my world, or just D&D in general. And of course, for us to all discuss what we would like to see for next time I stream Dungeons and Dragons. Memes today? Alright, so I don't have any of my memes prepped, I guess. And a lot of the memes we've made over the course have to do with some stuff a bit later in the campaign. But I suppose if you guys want, what I'll do is bring this image down and blow it up a little bit. And what we can do is I can do some meme sharing. But while I'm getting memes and bringing them up to show off to you guys, I've got a few questions for you to think about, to post up while I'm doing this. What did you guys think of the story? What are your questions about the characters and what's going to happen next? And most importantly, what would you like to see during my next stream? Obviously, there's the options for story time and doing some more stuff like that. We can look at doing some more encounter building. But also, I want to throw out an option for anybody out there. There's been a few times I've been chatting with people that have been building their own campaign sessions, encounters, and the like, that have wanted some input. So if you guys ever have something you're working on, and you would like me to spend a stream doing sort of a build along, an assay, you know, just kind of showing what you have, talking about how I would change it or what I would go about to build out what you're doing. I'm also very open to that and would love to like work with some of you guys on what you do. So I'm going to go ahead and hunt down some of my good memes that you guys might have the context to actually get. And while I'm doing that, tell me what you would like to see going forward. What you think are some of the best points in story time, or what you think of it. May take you up on that someday. Okay, Xenaku. If there's ever something you're working on, you could post it up, and then if someone has an assay or something you want me to go into, let me know, because after we do a bit of this meme sharing, I'm going to go ahead and post up the classic poll that I like to do at the end of the day. Let's see. We'll go for images and I'll see what I can find. Let's go oldest to newest. Hi, Hooney. Yep. Hi. It's Eric, not the one. The other one. Okay. You also missed an wait, I missed an RR redeem? Holy shit, 1 second. Did I? Are you messing with me right now, little pink? At least not seeing it on my mini feed. I'll scroll up a bit. Let me look. When I start working on world and story I've been sitting on, I may ask your opinion on a few things in the future. Oh, hell yeah, Xenaku. Do not hesitate. I fucking love that. It was a while ago. I didn't think you did it. Okay. Yeah, I have a question. Is there a big war in your world? Like Lord of the Rings? Is there a classic big bad? Like an all-over war zone? It wasn't mine. Okay. If someone's around that did an Ara Ara, and please don't lie about it, let me know if you did a redeem and didn't come, because I'm looking through my entire chat, and I'm not seeing that redeem, but I would hate for someone to have totally missed something that they paid the points for. So let me know. And Martial. So there is something going on that is called the Ascrostian. Oh. Well, Martial. Ora. There's something called the Ascrostian War, which is between the entire world and the Empire of Ascrostia. Oh. And it seems like we've got one from Halfrost. Hey, Halfrost, Ara. And as the nation is run almost entirely by vampires, they're a little bit of an obvious big bad, though nothing so classic as kind of how Lord of the Rings does it. It's more so a desire to make sure that there isn't a massive nation of vampires to the far east of everything, but they have been losing ground steadily over time, so they haven't been able to really push out into the world aggressively, as it were. Let's see. Eric is open to questions and concerns, trust me. We had a 20-minute convo about one of his races, so don't be afraid to ask. Yeah, nah. Like, I honestly just love this stuff so much. Sharing my shit, listening to your guys' shit, and just having big old discussions about everything. Wow. Let's see here. Any of my really classics. Oh, I might have to just go looking for the pinned ones. God, I need to remember to actually get this up and ready ahead of time. Okay, so pest control of those. So pest control of those nasty bloodsuckers. Yeah, basically. So the Ascrosian Empire has existed for a very long time, and it was only in the past 500 years or so that they actually converted to kind of a noble vampire monarchy, essentially. But even so, as soon as they openly started discussing, like, basically ruling the world as a vampire empire, the world essentially pooled their resources and have been slowly chipping away at the empire, forming new kingdoms free of their control to ensure that the world will never basically be threatened by that sort of thing. School primarily a transmutation school, or is transmutation a department of the larger school? Transmutation is a department of the larger school. Basically, all the schools of magic have an area within it that they use, and transmutation is just the one that the party's had the most experience with. And then, actually, so I believe there are 9 schools of magic. Let's see here, 6 of which are all basically founded in the kind of standardized sense by the wizard Adamus Key, which is why he's kind of the father of magic in that classic way. Ah, man. Why was Tortuga morally compelled to honor his deal with the children? snot-nosed little shits. That is definitely a thing with Tortuga. He's very conflicted at this part of his story. He has this great desire to be doing good, but also is kind of on a vengeance quest in a way. He's torn between this haunted darkness about the time his family was ripped asunder and he was sold into slavery. But he's trying to do good at the same time. Losing his family has pushed him into a really dark space, and a big part of his story arc is about him trying to figure out how he wants to engage, disengage, or simply deal with that darkness as it goes through him, where he wants to take it. Alright, so this, let's see how well this comes across. No clue if this will work well, but we'll see. Okay, that got really big. One sec. So this is one of the classic memes our party had. So there was a time when Milo was speaking to Aquila, and she asked him what his greatest wish was. That was kind of her trying to feel him out, to try to get that little bit of a needle into him to find out what his weakness, his desires, what her angle in could be. And I've got quite a few anime fans in my party, so of course there was some artwork made of a famous character from, I believe it's called Madoka Magica, asking Milo what his greatest wish is. And it seems like I have quite a few people out there that recognize this as well. What the fuck is anime? Oh god, oh jeez, oh shit. You know, that seems to be the big reaction to this image. Can't imagine why. My eyes cannot unsee. That is fair, that is fair. Alright, I'm gonna work really hard. Okay, yep, here's another one. Another classic meme, if you will. This from the segment where Aquila was enjoying some Rocky Mountain clams or goat testicles and decided to make eye contact with Tortuga to try to get a bit of a reaction out of him. Which is, I could say, my party has a very fucking interesting setup for how they do a lot of their image memes that I absolutely love. Okay. And now this meme that I'm definitely sharing is not one of our own invention, but is one that just keeps applying as the party ends up with 2 elves and a warforged with them. Meaning nobody fucking sleeps ever. One moment. Aquila sounds like my kind of girl. Hell yeah. Yeah, Blinty, I don't know why you ask for the memes. You're getting them, though. I'm gonna make sure you guys get at least 2 more fire memes. What in the goddamn? Yeah, no, that's just the thing in D&D, is elves and warforged barely have to sleep at all. So they just sort of get away with a lot of shit when it comes to going on watch and the like. Look, next thing... Let's see. Next thing you know, the warlock and he takes next thing you know, you get a warlock and he takes the invocation. Hell yeah, nah, dude. There's an ongoing joke of the secret warlock. All right, final one we're doing is a back-to-back meme. We got a setup and then the punchline, and this is just a little bit of a discussion of Pharaoh and her behaviors. I understand how you feel, but you really need to stop killing people. You thought you could you could talk me out of killing people. Are Warforged like robots? In a sense, they're like robots. Your party memes still don't seem as great as my party memes. Using the bladed dildo as a weapon at the end of a chain, like Kratos uses swords. Yeah, mine I think tend to be a lot more focused on the characters' interaction. Yeah, probably Milo. I don't know. That is 100%. Okay. No, I lied. Final meme, just because it very much relates to kind of that series of memes y'all just got. And this is because my party likes to keep a kill count available for them to look at to see who's gotten the most kills so far. And with it, they like to label why a kill happened. And one player was very shocked when they looked at the kill list and saw that another character had multiple different kills that didn't have a reason attributed to them. And so they asked the player of Pharaoh, wait, did you sacrifice two people to your god? There's three, actually. Is the soul bound to an armor like FMAB? So it depends. There are two types of Warforged that exist. There's the automaton, which is a being that has been imbued with a personality. And then there is a type of Warforged, which is basically a suit that has had a soul placed onto it. The classic Warforged lore is based more around the creatures that were made for war, but that is also specifically within the setting where there's constant warfare going on, and they were basically a way to replace humanoids in combat. In most settings that don't play within that setting, though, they tend to lean more so in the direction of a soul bound to a suit of armor than an animated creature made from scratch. Well, those aren't the full numbers. Those are just numbers at the time that the meme was made. So, actually, I want to see if I can find one more meme. And this is the last meme I want to share, simply because I know this will make 0 sense out of context. And that's exactly the type of meme I wish to close off at. Because with this, we're going to be wishing you all a good night. And we'll be seeing what I can get up and running for my next stream. I'm thinking definitely mixing in at least half story time to get you guys more and more catching up, because we still have quite a ways to go before we're anywhere near where the party currently is. But it might be good to mix in a few other things. Is it the Milo Pantheon meme? No, it is not. One of the only times my party kept a kill count, I had a vicious mockery kill straight up. Hell yeah. And so here is the meme that I'm certain none of you are going to understand because it is missing a crazy amount of context. What led to this is exactly what follows the current place in story time. This is what happens next on the party's search to find the lost student. There might be a bit of a spoiler in here, but I think you guys can appreciate a bit of the missing context joke going on. Rasmussen missed a session or two, didn't he? He missed a session, yeah, and came back to something very interesting. POV, you miss one session. Exactly. But with that, I'm afraid I'm going to be wishing you all a good night. I hope you all enjoyed the little full story time we had today. And I hope you all enjoy just me talking for 2 hours on end with a nice fireplace and a very entertaining story. If any of you out there ever want me to look into your own D&D stuff, give you my opinions, or if you ever want me to fully display my work on one of yours and make a stream based around building out some stuff you've been doing, I'm more than happy to go ahead and do that. But for now, all I can do is wish you a good night, and I hope to see you next week for the continuation of my D&D streams. Next stream, you sit on Junie's lap. Well, I'll contact her and see if she wants to come into one of these, but for the most part, my D&D streams are just me. Good night to all of you, and see you again soon.